Hello coin hunters, welcome back to the Coin Riches channel. If you appreciate stories that uncover hidden history and forgotten value, take a quiet moment now to subscribe and leave a like, because today's journey may change the way you look at the coins resting silently in your own home. Some objects are loud with importance, celebrated in museums and textbooks, while others live quietly among everyday things, waiting patiently for someone to notice their deeper meaning. The coin we are exploring today belongs to that quieter category, yet its story carries a weight far greater than its size. It is the 1960 Denmark 5 Kroner coin, a piece that feels ordinary at first glance but unfolds into something remarkable the longer you stay with it. To understand why this coin has captivated collectors and historians alike, we must travel back to a different era. The year 1960 stood at a crossroads of tradition and transformation across much of Europe, and in Denmark, that balance between heritage and modern identity was deeply visible. This was a country known for stability, craftsmanship, and an understated elegance that found its way into everything from architecture to currency. Coins were not simply tools of exchange, they were reflections of national character, shaped with deliberate care and meaning. At the center of this particular coin story is the figure whose presence defined Danish identity at the time. The obverse bears the portrait of Frederik IX, a monarch remembered not for extravagance, but for quiet strength and relatability. Unlike distant rulers of earlier centuries, Frederik IX carried an approachable dignity. He was a king who connected with his people in a grounded, almost personal way, and that connection is subtly captured in the lines and contours of this coin. When you look closely, you can sense the intention behind the design, as if the engraver sought not only to represent a face, but to preserve a feeling. What makes the 1965 Kroner coin so compelling is not just its imagery, but the moment it represents. Europe was emerging from the shadows of earlier conflicts, stepping cautiously into an era defined by rebuilding and renewed confidence. Nations were redefining themselves, and currency became one of the most accessible ways to express continuity while embracing progress. In Denmark's case, the decision to produce coins like this was both practical and symbolic. It reassured citizens that stability endured, even as the world changed around them. Hold a coin like this in your hand, and you begin to sense something that photographs rarely capture. There is a certain gravity to older silver coins, a reassuring weight that modern minting rarely replicates. It is not just metal, it is memory pressed into form. Every edge and detail hints at the countless hands that may have carried it through markets, train stations, family kitchens, and quiet drawers. Each mark of wear becomes part of its biography, a silent record of journeys no document could fully trace. For collectors in the 35 to 65 plus age range, this is where the emotional connection often begins. Many people in this stage of life are not simply chasing rarity, they are searching for meaning. A coin like the 1960 Denmark 5 Kroner offers that in abundance. It connects personal memory with broader history, bridging the gap between individual stories and national narratives. Perhaps it reminds someone of travel in their youth, or of a relative who kept a small collection tucked away. The coin becomes a doorway, inviting reflection as much as admiration, yet the intrigue surrounding this coin extends beyond nostalgia. Over the decades, numismatists have revisited mid-century European coins with fresh attention, reassessing their craftsmanship and cultural relevance. The 1965 Kroner stands out because it embodies a design philosophy that has largely faded in modern coinage. There is restraint here, a deliberate avoidance of unnecessary ornamentation. Instead, the artistry lies in proportion, clarity, and balance. The layout feels intentional, almost architectural, as if each element was placed with long-term permanence in mind. Another layer of fascination comes from how quietly this coin lived its early life. Unlike coins launched with fanfare or commemorative campaigns, the 1965 Kroner entered circulation without dramatic celebration. It served its purpose faithfully, moving through everyday transactions with little expectation of future attention. And perhaps that is precisely why its rediscovery feels so powerful today. There is something deeply compelling about an object that was never meant to be extraordinary, yet gradually reveals itself as something rare and meaningful. As time moves forward, perspective changes. Objects that once felt ordinary begin to glow with significance simply because they endured. The further we travel from the year 1960, the more that period takes on a kind of quiet romance. It was an age before digital noise, before instant communication reshaped how we value permanence. Coins from that time carry an authenticity that resonates strongly with mature collectors who appreciate patience and craftsmanship. They represent a slower rhythm of life, one that many viewers may remember or quietly miss. It is also important to consider the craftsmanship behind this coin. Minting in that era required precision rooted in experience rather than automation alone. The engravers who worked on Danish coinage carried traditions passed down through generations, refining techniques that balance technical skill with artistic intuition. When you study the 1965 Kroner closely, you begin to notice subtle nuances, the confident strokes in the portrait, the measured spacing of inscriptions, the way the design breathes rather than crowding the surface. These are not accidental details, they are the fingerprints of human mastery. Collectors often describe a moment when a coin transitions from being an object to becoming a companion in thought. That transformation happens when you stop seeing it as currency and start seeing it as a witness. Imagine the decades it has quietly observed. It may have rested in a leather wallet during a long train ride across the Danish countryside. It may have been handed across a cafe counter during a winter morning, steam rising from cups as conversations drifted through the air. It may have been tucked into a small box, saved not for value but for sentiment, waiting years before being rediscovered. Stories like these are impossible to verify, yet they feel true in a deeper sense. They remind us that coins are among the few artifacts that pass seamlessly between strangers while carrying shared history. Unlike paintings or heirlooms that remain fixed in one place, coins travel. They accumulate invisible layers of human experience, becoming quiet witnesses to everyday life. That mobility gives them a unique emotional resonance, especially for viewers who value authenticity over spectacle. In recent years, the conversation around mid-century European coins has shifted noticeably. Collectors who once focused primarily on older centuries are beginning to appreciate the historical depth of the 20th century. The 1960 Denmark 5 Kroner has emerged as a symbol of this shift, representing a period that is close enough to feel familiar yet distant enough to feel historic. It occupies a fascinating middle ground, where living memory meets archival significance. For many mature collectors, there is also a sense of rediscovery at play. People often return to hobbies later in life with renewed perspective, noticing details they once overlooked. A coin that might have seemed modest decades ago can suddenly appear profound when viewed through the lens of experience. The 1965 Kroner invites that kind of reflection. It encourages viewers to slow down, to look carefully, and to recognize that value is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it waits patiently, revealing itself only to those willing to listen. There is a quiet lesson embedded in this coin's journey, one that resonates deeply with thoughtful audiences. Not everything meaningful announces itself immediately. Some treasures live ordinary lives before stepping into the light. The 1960 Denmark 5 Kroner embodies that idea beautifully. It reminds us that history does not always arrive with grand ceremonies. Sometimes it slips into our hands quietly, disguised as something simple, waiting for time to reveal its deeper significance, and perhaps that is why stories like this continue to captivate viewers who prefer depth over noise. They offer reassurance that the world still holds undiscovered layers, that meaning still hides in unexpected places. A coin resting unnoticed in a drawer today could carry echoes of another era, waiting for someone curious enough to ask questions. That curiosity is what keeps numismatics alive, transforming small objects into vast landscapes of memory and meaning. That we have only begun to uncover the full story behind this remarkable coin, and what lies ahead deepens the intrigue even further, revealing how rarity, timing, and rediscovery combine to elevate the 1960 Denmark 5 Kroner into something far more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined. It becomes clear that the true transformation of the 1960 Denmark 5 Kroner did not happen overnight. For many years, it remained largely overlooked, circulating quietly among collectors who appreciated its craftsmanship but did not yet fully grasp its long-term potential. It sat in albums beside other mid-century European issues, respected but not celebrated. Yet beneath that calm exterior, subtle forces were beginning to reshape its destiny. time is one of the most powerful influences in the world of coin collecting. As decades pass, mintages shrink through loss, damage, and simple neglect. Coins that were once plentiful begin to thin out, especially in higher grades. The 1965 Kroner experienced this natural attrition. Many examples were spent, scratched, or melted when silver values fluctuated. Others were misplaced, forgotten in jars or drawers, exposed to moisture and wear. What remained in exceptional condition gradually became far scarcer than most people realized. For viewers in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, this pattern may feel familiar. We have all witnessed how ordinary items from our younger years quietly become rare. A tool once found in every workshop, a watch worn daily without ceremony, a book stacked casually on a shelf. Over time, these things become symbols of an era. The same principle applies here. The 1960 Denmark 5 kroner matured from common currency into historical artifact, not through hype, but through survival. Condition plays a decisive role in this story. A coin preserved with sharp detail, original luster, and minimal contact marks carries a presence that is unmistakable. When such a specimen surfaces decades later, it feels almost as if time has paused within its metal. The portrait of Frederik IX appears crisp, the inscriptions clear, the surfaces reflective in a way that suggests careful stewardship. Collectors who encounter such an example often describe a moment of stillness, a recognition that they are looking at something both fragile and enduring. Another element contributing to the coin's growing prestige is its representation of a stable constitutional monarchy during a period of global change. Denmark's reputation for measured governance and cultural continuity adds context to the coin's design. It was not struck during turmoil or propaganda campaigns. It was produced within a society that valued balance and restraint. That atmosphere of calm is almost tangible in the coin's aesthetic. For thoughtful collectors, this background enriches the experience of ownership. The coin becomes more than metal, it becomes a fragment of a nation's steady heartbeat during a transformative era. Over the years, as interest in Scandinavian numismatics broadened, seasoned collectors began re-examining mid-century Danish coinage with fresh eyes. They noticed that while some earlier centuries had long commanded attention, the coins of the 1950s and 1960s offered a unique intersection of modern minting precision and traditional artistry. The 1965 kroner emerged as a standout example of this blend. Its clean lines and balanced composition felt timeless rather than dated. It did not rely on elaborate symbolism, instead, it trusted in clarity and proportion. There is also a psychological dimension to its appeal. Coins from the distant past can sometimes feel abstract, their stories separated from us by centuries. In contrast, a 1960 coin occupies a space that many viewers can still relate to. It belongs to an era remembered by parents, grandparents, or perhaps by the viewers themselves in early childhood. That proximity creates emotional resonance. Holding such a coin can feel like touching the edge of personal memory, even if one never visited Denmark. The year alone carries echoes of vinyl records, handwritten letters, and a world less saturated with digital immediacy. As collectors matured and markets evolved, attention increasingly turned toward quality over quantity. Rather than accumulating large volumes of average pieces, many experienced numismatists began seeking singular coins that told complete stories. The 1960 Denmark 5 kroner fit that philosophy perfectly. It offered historical depth, artistic integrity, and the subtle allure of increasing scarcity. In private collections, it began to occupy positions of quiet pride, often displayed not for flash, but for contemplation. It is worth pausing to reflect on how value is truly formed. Monetary worth in the collectible world is rarely driven by metal content alone. Instead, it emerges from a combination of rarity, condition, historical relevance, and collective recognition. When these factors align, the shift can be profound. The 1965 kroner experienced such an alignment gradually. As fewer pristine examples remained and appreciation for its context grew, its reputation strengthened. Conversations among serious collectors shifted from casual interest to deliberate pursuit. For those watching today, especially individuals who have built careers, families, and collections over decades, there is a deeper lesson embedded in this transformation. Patience often rewards discernment. The coin did not shout for attention in 1960. It did not promise immediate fortune. Its rise was measured, almost quiet, mirroring the temperament of the nation that produced it. That steady ascent resonates strongly with mature audiences who understand that lasting value is rarely instantaneous. Another compelling aspect of the 1960 Denmark 5 kroner is the way it bridges generations. A grandparent might introduce a younger family member to the coin, explaining who Frederik IX was and why Denmark's mid-century history mattered. In that moment, the coin becomes a teaching tool, a tangible link between past and present. It encourages conversation, curiosity, and respect for craftsmanship. Few modern objects possess that ability. Digital files can be deleted, trends can vanish overnight. But a well-preserved coin endures. As awareness expanded, demand for exceptional specimens intensified. Collectors who once hesitated began to recognize that opportunities were narrowing. When a coin surfaces that combines sharp detail, minimal wear, and documented provenance, it captures attention quickly. Serious buyers understand that such pieces may not reappear frequently. The combination of age, preservation, and historical context becomes increasingly rare as years pass. In reflecting on this coin's journey, one cannot ignore the emotional dimension of discovery. Imagine opening a long-closed box inherited from a relative and finding within it a small envelope containing a 1960 Denmark 5 kroner in remarkable condition. At first, it may seem modest. But as research and reflection unfold, its significance grows. What began as a simple keepsake transforms into a symbol of heritage and foresight. The realization can be deeply moving, not merely because of financial implications, but because of connection. Throughout history, objects that endure beyond their expected lifespan acquire a certain dignity. They outlast trends, technologies, even generations. The 1960 Denmark 5 kroner has reached that stage. It stands as a reminder that careful design and national pride can produce artifacts worthy of lasting respect. Its surfaces, once part of everyday commerce, now invite careful examination under magnification and light. Collectors study its edges, its relief, its balance, appreciating the intentional craftsmanship embedded within. For viewers who have spent years cultivating an appreciation for history and tangible assets, this coin offers reassurance that meaningful discoveries are still possible. It suggests that value can lie dormant, waiting for perspective to catch up. That idea carries quiet optimism. It encourages us to look more closely at what we already possess, to reconsider objects dismissed as ordinary, and now we arrive at the point where reflection meets revelation. After decades of gradual recognition, after attrition reduced available high-grade examples, after collectors reassessed its historical and artistic significance, the 1960 Denmark 5 kroner achieved a level of esteem few would have predicted in its year of release. Its journey from circulating currency to treasured artifact stands as a testament to patience and discernment. Today, in the right condition and under the right circumstances, this remarkable coin commands a staggering value of $180,000.